Hi everyone, happy Wednesday. Welcome to a deeper dive into SuccessFactors. We will wait just about another moment or so and give a few people a chance to join, and then we'll get started. Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining. My name is Becky Murray, and I will be presenting a deeper dive into SAP SuccessFactors. When we hear the term SuccessFactors or see it written out, we oftentimes think of talent management solutions. And that is how SuccessFactors got its start, as being a talent management solution, focusing on things such as performance management, goal setting, and succession planning. And over the past several years, the solution has evolved to become a full core HRIS solution, doing full data record keeping with effective data and history, building out performance management and goal management, incorporating things such as recruitment, onboarding, workforce analytics. So it's really become a full service and full solution HRIS tool. One of the nice things about SuccessFactors is that it is cloud-based, so you don't have to worry about taking care of servers or boxes or any equipment. It's web accessible, so for your administrators and your users, both groups will access the solution through a web-based interface. And of course, it's based on best practice user interface solutions as well as user configuration pieces. So in terms of navigating around the system, accessing data, and using tools, it's very easy and very straightforward. Here are the 4 key focus areas that SuccessFactors works in. As I mentioned, we have core HR that keeps a full system of record for HR-related data, both related to the person and to their employment. We have talent management, encompassing all different sorts of offerings, from goal management, performance reviews, compensation, learning solutions, recruitment and onboarding. We also have an analytics offering that gives us full insight into the data that we have within our system, both real-time current information, historical data, and future dated information. So it allows us to make good decisions and choices with data that we have now, as well as doing some simulations and predictive reporting about data we may have in the future. And then, of course, we tie everything together with social collaboration. So offering a platform for your end users to engage together while at work, working on projects, working towards common solutions, exchanging of ideas, data, and documents. And this translates into the following diagram, where we can see that SuccessFactors is truly modular. And some of our customers like to run 1 or 2 modules. Some of our customers like to run all of the modules. The nice thing about the solution being modular is that they don't have to be implemented in any particular order, and there are no other module prerequisites. So if we need recruiting, we can implement recruiting without having to implement any other module to go along with it. And that allows you as customers to identify your pain points and address them right away, instead of going through prerequisite modules that you may not need right at the moment. And then we can always add to or take away as your business needs change. So if we look at the left-hand side of this particular diagram, we can see in green we have the ability to get people working on the right things. So going in and setting goals for an individual employee, for a team, for a department, for a division, for the entire organization. And we have insight now into what people are working on in terms of their goals, whether that's personal development goals or strategic initiatives. We now have the ability to have insight and oversight into people's goals and their progress. We have the ability to cascade and align goals up and down the organization, so that as an executive or higher level manager, I can create a goal or an initiative and encourage my team members and other subordinates to work towards that goal with me. On the performance side, we have the ability to evaluate the performance of an employee, whether it's an annual review, a mid-year review, some sort of advanced development plan where we're checking on their progress. We have the ability to go in, provide feedback, provide constructive criteria and evaluations to help our employees develop. On the workforce planning side, we have the ability to do some predictive work based on the number of employees we have now and the type of work that they're doing. Where do we have a need in the future? So all of those aspects kind of work together to get our employees on the right track. In the middle, in the bluish color, we have modules that help make our employees great, to bring them into our organization, to get them trained, to develop them as employees, and to progress them throughout our organization. So recruiting coupled with onboarding helps us bring in strong candidates from the external world or to promote internally our existing employees. Compensation allows us to reward them for a job well done, make them feel as though they're appreciated and a part of the team. That fosters loyalty and relationships with the organization, so they're more likely to stay around. On the learning side, we prepare new hires or people new to certain roles with the skills and training that they need in order to be successful. But then we can also put training plans in place to get our employees to the next level so that they're constantly growing and maturing in our organization. Again, going back to that concept of loyalty and having a relationship between employer and employee. And then finally in this category, we have the succession planning module, which allows us to ensure that our key positions are staffed currently and that we have succession plans in place should we ever find ourselves with a vacancy for a key position. And of course, we can tie that in together with the learning module for putting a learning plan in place for someone who's identified as a key position successor. On the right-hand side of the diagram, we have our Making the Business Run Better area. And these are two modules, JAM and the Workforce Analytics, where we're able to get real-time data, run some numbers, make insights into that data, and not just have reports, but interpretations of those reports to help us make business decisions today and in the future. And then we have our JAM tool, which is our social collaboration platform, where employees can work together, sharing ideas, sharing documents, making proposals, really helping to tie people together into that collaborative workforce idea. At the bottom in gray, you can see that we have a bar for Employee Central. Employee Central is our core HRIS solution. So that's where we maintain the historical records for our employees, both for personal information and employment information. And although it's not a requirement to run Employee Central, when we run any of these other modules, we do put it at the bottom along the base because it serves as a great foundation for supporting these other modules and tying them all together. All right, let's actually get into the solution and see what things look like. I have up for us a sample homepage. This is a starting point or a dashboard or a landing page that your administrators, your employees, and your managers will see when they come into the system for the first time. It's all web-based, so users can sign in either using a username and password or through single sign-on through your home network. I'm just going to escape out of full screen for a moment to show you that this is, in fact, a web page. We have a web address at the top where we navigated to, and we support a series of different browsers. On this main home page, I'm presented with just about everything that I need to come in and perform HR-related tasks. Depending on the type of user that I am, a manager, an employee, an HR administrator, I will have different options and selections presented to me. So you can see here that I have a series of different tiles related to different pieces of the system. I have a My Info tab, which allows me to see my own information and to quickly jump to areas of the system with my own data. Whether it's to go to my employment information, to look at my benefits, my goal plan, request a leave of absence, everything that I need here to manage myself as an employee is in this quick link section. I don't have to go and hunt around the system to find what it is I'm looking to do. I can come here to the My Info tile and use a quick link to jump right into the system. To the right of that, I have the My Team tile. And I have this My Team tile because I'm a team leader. I'm a manager in the system. If I were just a traditional employee without a team underneath me, then I would not have this tile here. It appears for me because I am a manager. And I can see that I have snapshots of my different team members who work for me. And I can scroll up or down to view the entire team. Now, as I click on an employee's picture, it brings me up a snapshot of that employee, some basic contact information, his or her local time, and any tasks that he or she is working on that are currently due. So I can do a quick check with this number 5 to see that Sid, our employee here, has 5 outstanding tasks. And I get that snapshot here when I look at his picture. I can see the total number of pending tasks in the corner. So as a manager, I can come into the system and quickly see if people are on target with their tasks or if they perhaps need a little bit of a nudge. And that will send a reminder to the employee to go in and process the tasks that are currently due. And these tasks may be things like setting goals at the beginning of a goal period, or doing a year-end performance review, doing a signature form for a year-end review, any of those different types of things where the employee is involved. They'll show up here. So as a manager, I have visibility to the tasks they're working on and where they are progress-wise. Also here from my employee SIDS record, I can click on the Actions link, and you can see it gives me the ability to jump to information related to SID. I can go and look at SIDS employment information, SIDS performance reviews, goal plans, or I can go in and perform an action, request a job change, request a spot bonus, those types of things. So again, we've put in links and easy access to different places in the system right here from the home page. And that's why I like to think of it as a dashboard or as a cockpit, because I can really use this to launch into different areas of the system without having to do too much navigation. Most of the text that you'll see on the home page is hyperlinked, and so I can use it to quickly hop around. When something catches my eye, I can jump right to it. Or if I'm looking for something in particular, I don't have to search too hard. I can just come down to the link section or to my goal section to go right into my goal management area. Or here on the to-do list side, I can see tasks that are pending for me as an individual. It may be to complete my own performance review, or to approve an employee transfer, or to approve a new hire. Whatever process I may be engaged in, either as an employee, as a manager, or as an HR representative, I have the ability to see these tasks here. They're hyperlinked. I can jump right to them, and I can see a due date associated with them. A neat thing about this homepage, for those of us on the HR side, is that we have the ability to create custom tiles. So you can see we have a very plain one up in the top left-hand corner, but we can really build this welcome message out, put in a welcome note from a CEO, put in reminders about the company party, put in clips to our website, to a benefits website. If there's a product announcement, any different type of thing that we'd like to do to make this page more engaging, we can do here. And we can put in multiple custom tiles, and they can be tailored to different groups of our organization. Another thing that we can do with SuccessFactors to make the site more engaging to our end users is to brand it, to put in custom logos, and to change the color scheme. So a lot of our customers like to change the color scheme to make it more aligned with their company colors or to match their company website, so that when their end users log in here, there's a level of familiarity and comfort with being in the solution. Okay, let's start digging around in the system and looking at some of the different modules. Every module will come with this home page. So this is kind of what we call part of the base or platform offering. So all systems will have a landing page like this, and depending on the different modules that we're implementing, we'll get some different tiles. So for example, if we are implementing the goal management solution, we will get the goals tile, where it will show me a snapshot of the goals that are currently planned for me, and I can review them and click on the hyperlink to go right into the goal plan, to update my progress, to review weightings, to add notes or milestones, whatever it may be. If I decide to add the recruiting module, then I get this careers tile here. And from here I can search job openings. apply for them, check my progress, check my alerts, so that as an internal candidate, I can be apprised of openings within the company and throw my hat in where I find a match. And then as we turn on different modules or different areas of the system, we'll find that some of these existing tiles build out a little bit more, and there are more options and selections for us. On the top side, we have a few different pieces of functionality. We have our home button, which always returns us back to this page as it's shown here. So as we start to use the system, navigate to different areas, I can always come back to this start page by clicking on the home icon. I have a search box here, just right of the middle, where I can type in an action that I want to take, maybe hire a new employee or add a new goal to my goal plan. If I'm not sure where to find something here, I can just start typing whatever it is that I want to do here. Options will come up for me. Or I can type in an employee's name or start to type in a name, and I'll be presented with a small snapshot of contact information in a directory-like form for different employees who match that criteria. So it's a real quick and easy way to jump to different areas of the system or to view contact information and basic employment details from my colleagues. And then finally, in the top left-hand corner, I have my main navigation bar. And this allows me to quickly jump to different areas of the system based on function. So if I want to go in and run a report, I can jump to Analytics. If I want to go in and do some succession planning, I can jump to Succession. I'm going to go ahead and start by looking at some company information so that we can see some more of the base core offering before we get into more of the specific modules. And this menu, as it is shown here, will vary based on the modules that we implement and what type of user is accessing the system. So if we don't implement the recruiting module, then this option will not show here. And likewise, if I'm not an administrator, I won't have access to the admin center. So the system will dynamically generate this menu path for me based on the modules we have implemented and who the user is that's using the system. Coming down here to company info will bring me to an organizational chart and a company directory. So right now, for today's demonstration, I'm logged in as Carla Grant. And so that is who comes up in our snapshot of the organizational chart. And I can see that Carla has a series of different team members who report to her. With a solid line, this is a direct reporting relationship. With a dotted line, this is a matrix manager or a dotted line relationship. So I can see that Carla has 6 regular employees reporting to her in a direct line relationship and 1 matrix managee. And if I look at her information box, I can see that she has denoted 6/44, and that represents the fact that she has 6 direct reports and a total of 44 roll-up reports. So if I look, I can see that Marcus has people who roll up to him. He has 9 direct reports and 10 total reports. Richard has 4 direct reports and 5 total reports, and so on and so forth. So in total, 44 people roll up to Carla. 6 of them are direct reports, and 1 of them is a matrix report. I can see Carla's name, her job title, And when I click on her, it opens up what I like to call the business card view, because it gives a snapshot of her name, her title, her location, a phone number, an email address where she can be contacted, and then a snapshot of her team and reports. And depending on the type of user that I am, and I happen to be logged in as Carla directly, I can go in and view her information or make certain changes. Of course, your regular employee won't be able to view too much information about his or her peers, maybe some basic job and contact information, whereas a manager would be able to review additional data about his or her team members. And of course, someone on the HR administrator side would have greater access to the data, as well as the ability to make data changes. So what I can see and do on different people in the system depends who it is I am and who I'm logged in as. If I want to traverse down the org chart, I use drag and drop functionality and can click on subordinates, and it will expand the org tree out. And again, I get a snapshot of information here. Or I can decide to view the org tree up and traverse up the organizational chart as well. I can zoom in and out. I can choose to save or print the information, and I can export it out of the system. And again, this functionality is all part of what we term the platform offering. So with any module that you decide to implement, you get not only the home page, but the org chart as well, and you get our directory. So the directory is a quick and easy way to search for people, such as our Carla, and we can type in information and search for people with that first name. We have a tag system that we can optionally use, and people can tag themselves or their direct reports with certain skills or qualifications or key indicators. And when I come here to the directory, if I'm looking for someone in human resources, then I can click on that popular tag, and it will return for me people tagged to human resources. The other thing that I can do is click on the options button, where I'm able to search by any or all of these different pieces of data, putting in a name, putting in a division, putting in a particular location, even a nickname or a department. So if I'm looking for contact information for a peer that I met at a particular location, and I know the first name, and I know the location, then I can add that information in and do a search. And then again, I get back that business card of information with an email address and a phone number and a job title. So a nice, easy way to keep track of colleagues and peers, or to find people quickly within a directory type scenario. Let's go ahead and review some of the employee files. And depending on which modules we choose to implement, we can have a different array of employee files presented to us. Everyone gets what we call the public profile. It's just a little bit more of an elaborate view of the basic business card. We have a picture and a name, a job title, a division, we have a location, a local time, contact information including email address, a little blurb that the employee can put in about him or herself, or if they're on vacation for a week or two, they could put a note in here about that as well. Scrolling down a little bit more, we have the tag section that I mentioned, and we can come in here and depending on our permissions, we can assign a new tag to this employee so that they can be searched quickly from the directory based on that particular category. I get a mini snapshot of the org tree, so I can see Carla's direct reports, just like we saw in the org structure page. And I can click on this full size button to be jumped back over to the full size org chart. We have a badging system for recognition. So as an HR rep or manager, I can give out different badges of recognition to my team members. And it's just a nice way to let your team members know that you appreciate them or that they did a great job on a certain project or initiative. When I'm ready to view additional information about Carla, the system takes into account my particular authorization or my security profile. Because I'm currently logged in as Carla, I'm an employee viewing my own records. So I have the ability to see not only my employment information, but my personal information as well. And for most users, they will not have the ability to see personal information that's not their own. It just so happens that we are logged in as Carla, and so we're getting the employee self-service view of things for her own information. And you can see that we store a series of different pieces of data related to the person. Things like a national ID card, an address, basic personal information, biographical information, data related to a work permit, contact information, both business and home, emergency contacts, dependents, and then bank information for direct deposit. And as an employee, I have the ability to make self-service changes to different pieces of data. And depending on our setup preferences, we can trigger a workflow notification to go out for approval or review, or we can just confirm the changes in the system depending on your own business processes. So as an employee, I can come in and view the current data that you have for me. If I have an address change, I can process that here. If I have a change to last name or marital status, I can make those requests here as well. I like self-service functionality for two reasons. One, it gets your HR representatives out of the habit or the task of doing data entry. So you're no longer having to sit there and enter in the data, but rather do an overview or confirmation of the data that the employee has already entered in. And the second reason that I like self-service functionality is because the originator of the data for personal information is the employee. And who better to correctly enter in a new address than the employee who just moved to that address. So the owner of the information is now the originator of that data in the system. And again, it goes to the HR rep as needed for review and oversight. And one of the things I hear from my customers a lot is that it frees up their HR team to do the more strategic stuff, to run the reports, to provide analysis of things, or to go out and assist their employees with day-to-day type tasks. And it gets them away from having to do data entry on a regular basis just to keep the system up to date. If that doesn't jive with your current business processes, if your HR team is more likely to want to continue processing that data on their own, we can certainly configure the system to do that. You'll still get benefits from self-service though, because I as an employee can come in and view my records and see that the data you have for me is current and up to date. I'm sure those of you who are on the HR side are used to having people come in and tell you, hey, by the way, I moved last month, or by the way, I got married, 3 weeks ago, and whatnot. And people will know that the information you have for them is not current because now they can come into the system and see that data and either make a self-service request change or contact you to process that change for them. So it's going to help keep your data valid and current and up to date just by giving visibility to different people. Outside of the personal information, we also store employment-related data. So this is data that relates to the employee and their role within your organization. So things like job title and company assignment and location, division, department, hire date, when they came to work from you, a service date in case they were acquired from someone else, a cost center assignment, basic employee characteristics. Is this a full-time or a part-time employee? Are they regular or temporary? Is this an intern or an expat? What their pay grade is. All of these different pieces of information that help you categorize this employee are stored and available here. And as HR administrators, we have full view and ability to keep this data up to date. As an employee, I no longer have that edit button here, so I'm not able to change my own job information. But if I were to look at this from a manager standpoint, which we'll do in just a moment, I'll be able to see that a manager has the ability to request changes for his or her team members, such as promotions and transfers and manager changes. As I scroll down on this employment page, I see that there's an area for storing job relationships. So if there's a matrix manager in play, or an HR representative, or a timekeeper, or a payroll admin, I can record all of these relationships here. That way an employee knows who to contact if there's a question about timekeeping or about a paycheck. And I can also include these representatives into workflows for approval and give them special security or authorization within the system to do certain things to or for this particular employee. And then, of course, we have information related to compensation and pay. We have the ability to track recurring payments, such as an hourly wage or an annual salary. We have the ability to keep track of pay targets, such as an annual bonus, in either an amount or a percentage. And we have the ability to do one-time payments as well as deductions. So all of that information is stored here. It's all effective data, so we keep track of your changes in pay and your changes in job. We keep track of that history. And it's available here for employees to review, for managers, depending on their authorizations to review, and then for HR representatives to maintain. One thing that I'll point out for those of you who are international or global is that this area of the system is fully globally supported as well as locally supported. So I can create a global template of job-related information that I want to store for all of my employees globally, but then have a few fields that apply just to certain locations that help me as an organization or an HR rep stay in compliance in those particular areas. So for an example, in the US, I may record an EEO code or an FLSA status. In France, I may record a siren code. And so you'll see in certain areas that the system is globally compliant. If we back up and go over again to our personal information, I can see that the address information that is shown here, it's formatted to be a U.S. address format because my employee is in the U.S. If I were to have an employee in a different country, Canada for example, we would see province. If I were to add an address in for a holiday or a vacation and it was overseas, the address would format appropriately based on the country I selected. So fully compliant with local address formats, local national IDs, and then any local compliance information related to equal opportunity reporting, challenged worker status, visa requirements, all those different types of things. So a pretty powerful system, not just for companies that are here in North America, but for companies that have a presence globally. Now Carla, in addition to being an employee, also happens to be a manager. And so when I click on the drop-down next to her name, I'm able to see peers, if she were to have any, who her manager is, but also a quick look at who her direct reports are. And I can select one of her direct reports and pop over to his or her record. So now I'm looking at the employment information of her report, Marcus Hoff. And I can see his position information, information related to his job. I can see that his supervisor is Carla, job title, also a full-time regular employee, and I can see the different pay-related information here. One thing that I have here on Marcus's record that I did not have on Carla's record is the ability to propose changes. Because Carla can't put in for her own job change or her own pay increase, but she can make that request for her team managers, her team members. So as a manager looking at my team members, I can come in and request a change to job and compensation. And so maybe I want to suggest a job change for Marcus. I'm presented with a guided process that walks me through step by step the information I need to complete. So what change are you proposing for Marcus? And here he is here, Marcus Hoff, and he's the sales director based out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and he has 9 direct reports. If I want to make a job change for him, I click the box here. If I want to make both a job and a comp change for something like a promotion, I check off more than one. I always want to put in an effective date. That is what builds the history for me. So I need to know when Marcus changed from one job to the next and what the first job was and what the second one is. Putting in this effective date helps me build that history. So I'll put in the proposed date, and then the system defaults in for me the current value of Marcus's record. So I just need to come in and choose the piece that I want to change. If I'm transferring him from Philadelphia to Arlington, then I can make the change just by clicking on the drop-down. And what you'll notice is that the old value displays off to the right in a little scratched out gray text, and the new value displays in blue. In this setup, this scenario with the gray scratched out text and the blue highlighted text, you'll start to see throughout the system when you look at someone's history or their records over time, and that will tell you the data changes and the dates on which they changed. And then we can start to put together Marcus's job records and his history at the company and know what changed from record to record just by looking at it. When I'm done proposing my changes, I scroll down to the bottom and click on the Submit button. And depending on my business processes, I can either save it directly into the system, which hardly ever happens. Most of my customers prefer to set up a workflow or approval path. So when I click on this submit button, it will go to a second level manager for review and approval, or to an HR representative for a review and approval. Whatever your process is, we kind of tailor that path so that the right people get notified of a proposed change and the right people get to weigh in on whether it should happen or not. And of course, we have the ability to backdate, so to enter in historical changes, and future date as well. So if the change wasn't supposed to take place until next month, we can still start the change, process it now, get it approved, and then just have it waiting for the actual date to roll around. I'm going to jump back over now to Carla's record, since she's our test employee for today. And I'm going to move away from her employment information and look at her pending requests. Pending requests is where we can see the different workflow notifications in which Carla is a participant. So it could be a request that she initiated and she's waiting for approval from other participants. Or it could be a request that someone sent to her and they're waiting for her to approve it. It could be a notification about a change that has taken place where she doesn't actively need to approve or reject it, but someone wanted to give her a heads up about a change that's been made. Or she can see requests that are still in progress, that she initiated or that she was involved with, and they're currently being processed by someone else. So this is almost a little control area for her, that she can keep track of requests that she initiated or that she's somehow involved with, and she can follow them through to the end. So this is a nice page. HR reps always like this one because we are able to allow managers to track their own changes and to track the approval process. So if something's being held up or it hasn't been confirmed in the system, instead of getting a phone call, a manager can come here and see, okay, it's currently pending with Nancy, that's great, I have a meeting with her tomorrow, I'll bring it up then, and we can get this particular spot bonus process through. So it just gives your managers information so that they can manage appropriately. Another employee file that's pretty neat is the talent profile. And this page takes us away from personal information and employment information and brings us into the talent side, where we are able to gather information about our employee to help us know more about them and to help us know where they fit in our organization talent-wise. So we know about current work within the company, although it's nice to see it all listed out on one page. But now we get to see things like functional experience and leadership experience and previous employment and education. Pieces of information that are helpful for us when developing learning or training plans, or when looking at career development or succession plans, to know that Carla had leadership in the insurance industry before coming here, or that she used to work with a previous company that we're now hoping to partner with, or that we are acquiring. Or we're hosting a recruiting event at NYU, and Carla went there, and so maybe we'll have her go to that recruiting event. Or we're planning a succession planning scenario for a key position, and I can see that Carla has an interest in becoming a senior VP of account management. That's an interest of hers. So maybe I'll consider her in that planning scenario. Or I'll put a plan in place to help her be prepared to be a good candidate to fill a vacancy if that role should become vacant. I can see that she's willing to relocate. Boston is on her list of places that she's willing to go. I can look at special assignments or projects she was engaged in, what work she did there. I can look at her development goals, things that she's doing outside of day-to-day tasks to improve her skills or to make her a stronger candidate for something internally. I can review courses, seminars that she's participated in. If a certificate was awarded as a result of participating, it can be listed here. If she records licenses, if she's CPR certified, or if you're an engineering firm and you're recording engineering licenses, with expiration dates, all of those pieces can be tracked here so we make sure that she stays current. And then just a few other different things like languages or organizations, awards that she's received, things she does in the community. When we set up this page, we go through and pick and choose which of these data blocks are important to your organization and then build them into this page. And we can set it up so that employees can make updates to their own items here, all of them or some of them. Maybe they're done in conjunction with the manager. Maybe they're maintained by HR, depending on your business processes. But it's a nice way to gather some of that extraneous data that doesn't always have a holding place in a traditional HR system, but it's relevant and it's important if you're trying to know more about your team members and if you're taking a strategic approach to managing your employee base. This is information that you need so that you can actively involve them in things like career growth and succession planning. Another neat thing to look at on the employee files is the scorecard. And this is where we can bring together or tally together information related to the employee's performance over a period of time. So bringing together ratings or reviews or competencies from a series of different performance reviews. So you can see in this particular view, we have scorecard data from March 1st, 2010 to the end of 2014. So this is pulling together a series of performance reviews over the course of a few years, giving all the forms that she's been involved in, different objectives that she's engaged in, what those ratings were, any core competencies that your organization tracks, either for individual contributors or for managers. It can be listed here, her current rating, when it was last evaluated, and through which form, and then if there's a gap. So with our jobs, we can set up expected ratings, what we have as expectations for what someone in Carla's role should be earning. And then if there happens to be a gap, it's easily identified here. And these gaps make great development objectives. And we can roll those development objectives into training plans, hoping to decrease that gap. So we can see here some more information about previous employment, formal education, information about her team, and her role within the organization. So just lots of data that we try to make available and easily accessible to people so that managers can actively manage their employees and HR representatives can actively prepare for career growth and succession scenarios. Okay, let's jump out of employee files and over into the goals module. And the goal module is pretty neat. I actually like it. It's one of the slickest ones I've seen. And what I like most about it is that when I set a goal as an employee, I can align it to a strategic category, such as financial or customer service, business processes, innovation and learning. These are just sample ones that we have in the sample goal form. Of course, we'd put in your own key categories. And I know if I can align my goal into one of these key categories, then it's probably a relevant goal for staying on track with what the company is headed towards. I can also align my goal up or align it down. So depending on my visibility permissions to my manager's form, if there are public goals that he or she has on there, I'll be able to view those public goals and then align my goal to his or her goals so that I'm helping to support his or her objective. And as a manager, I can take a goal that I have and cascade it down to my team members so that they will help support the goals that I am working on. So you can imagine having an executive at the top of your org structure who has a few key strategic objectives that he or she wants to work on for the year and pushing out those objectives across the organization and everyone taking their little piece of that goal. If he wants, a 15% increase in customer satisfaction measured through, surveys, then each little team or division can pull off just a chunk of that 15%. And each division or team or employee group or individual employees can do their part into helping reach that overall objective. And when we run reports on those things, that executive can look at her strategic goal individually, and she can see how many people are working towards that goal and what their progress is. And they make really cool pie graphs and progress charts that can be plugged very easily into PowerPoint, and they're very impressive when you show up to meetings with them. So let's look at this particular goal plan for Carla. These are her 2014 goals. We can get a new one each half year or whatever our process may be. Our goals are divided up into these key 4 categories based on the business initiatives for the year. I can see that one of her goals is to ensure a 50% total revenue coming from products introduced in the past 3 years. When I click on that goal, it brings up information for me. It's a public goal, so her team members can see it and they can align to that goal if they choose to. It's in the financial category. Her goal is written out here. We have a spell check and a legal scan, so we make sure that the terminology used is acceptable in the business world. I can see what her metrics are, execution targets. If there's a way to automatically pull in those targets, I can enter in a link for data or a URL. Probability of success, which she can periodically update as the year goes on. How far along she is, what the weighting of this goal is compared to other goals, whether she's on track, when it was started, when it was due, and then if there were any intermediary deliverables or milestones, she can add them here. So just a nice way to keep a goal, have it be set appropriately, and then to mark her progress. And all of that information displays here along the lines. I can add a new goal by using the goal wizard. So for employees who have a little bit of trouble coming up with SMART goals, I can use this guided process. I can type in some keywords and it's going to put in suggestions for me, or I can type in my own from scratch. I want to achieve a customer satisfaction rating of at least 3 for work provided by the department. So that's a specific goal. I've put in what I want to do and then a specific number to reach. Next step in the guided process is to make sure it's measurable. How will I measure it? It's given me a prompt, customer satisfaction score from our surveys. So there's a library built into the system, and if I use one of the goals from the library, it will prompt me with some of these different pieces of information. Is this goal attainable? Yes. Next step, is it relevant? Is this goal relevant to what our company is working on? Is it aligned to my company goals, to my manager, or to my department? If it's not, I should go back and pick another one. If it is, then I'm in good shape to move forward, and I can choose who I want to align it with, or just leave it unaligned for the time being. And then, is it time-bound? Put in my start date and put in my end date. And when I'm all done, I can add that goal to my sheet and start working on it. And not only can I add my own goal, but I can take that goal, select it here, and cascade it down to my team members. Guess what, Brenda and Richard? I want you to work on this goal as well. And it will actually push to their individual form. I can see that I've already pushed it down to Marcus. I've already pushed it down to Wilma and Vic. And now I'm pushing it to Brenda and Richard as well. So as a manager, I'm updating their forms to align with my initiative. Pretty neat. Another thing that I can do for keeping up with this goal form is to create a new goal. And instead of going through that SMART goal wizard, I can add a goal just from scratch, or I can choose to add a goal from the library. If I work in HR and I'm on the compensation side, I can choose from a listing of goals here that are related. And the system will help me by filling in different pieces of these goals, where all I need to do is go in and fill in some blanks and some dashes. And now I have SMART goals with good metrics that are hopefully aligned somewhere else within the organization. I know as an employee myself, one of the hardest things that I have to do is set my goals at the beginning of the year and then evaluate them at the end of the year. And by using these goal wizards or the goal library, I have at least a starting point or a baseline or a list of suggestions. So even if I don't copy one of those goals exactly, I can at least modify it a little bit to make it relevant to what I'm doing. And then I know I've got a SMART goal that's in place where it's time-bound and it has good metrics and I'm more likely to achieve it. Okay, a neat thing here in the goal plan is this status report link. So periodically throughout the period of time that you're writing your goals and updating them, we can send out status reports. So here I am logged in as Carla. These are Carla's goals. You can see that there are 4 of them. We've recorded expectations and actuals. I can go in and make quick updates here to either one. I can go in and adjust the level of effort. We all know that things change throughout the course of the year. We might start to get competing initiatives. Our work may change and our direction or our focus could shift. I can indicate probabilities of success, put in some notes about the progress I've made or the lack of progress that I've made. I can put in some free text notes here. I can run my spell check and the legal check, and then I can send out my status update to my manager. Or I can choose to print it and email it out in another manner. So just a nice way if I'm struggling with my goals to send a status update, or if I'm going in for a weekly one-on-one or a quarterly sit-down or whatever it may be, that I can shoot my manager over an update, and that will be something that we can discuss during our sit-down. And there are a few more things hidden in here. I can set up a meeting agenda to discuss the items and just a lot of different ways to keep employees focused on their tasks and easy for them to communicate progress to different people. So at the end of the goal planning period, we typically do some sort of performance review. And depending on your company's business processes, that performance review could involve evaluating objectives. It could be unrelated to objectives. You could just evaluate overall year performance. You can do some sort of competency evaluation or individual development evaluation. You can roll them all into one. Whatever your process is, we're able to support it. We come here to the performance area where it lists out our different forms in which we're participants. Now again, we're still logged in as Carla. So Carla has her own performance reviews because she's an employee, but she also has performance reviews for her team members because she's a manager. So here I can see the form title, and it's a hyperlink. So when I click on it, it will open for me. I can see who the employee is that's being evaluated. And when I click on their name, I get my little business card snapshot. I can see what step in the evaluation process the form is in. So we develop what we call route maps for our performance form. And that's basically just a listing of who does what, when, for each form. So for a performance review, there may be an employee self-evaluation, and then a manager review, and then maybe there's an HR calibration, and then finally a signature step. Each phase of that form can be built into the form, and we can put dates around it so that reminders and notices get sent out. But at any rate, it progresses the form from one state to the next. So I know that here, if we're at the manager evaluation step, then the self-review has already been done. I know a little bit about the progress of that form. I can see start dates and end dates, and then when the form is finally due. So let's go ahead and look at a form for Wilma. Wilma is one of Carla's direct reports. So this is a performance review. And here we have Wilma's picture. And we've got her little business card view in the corner. And if I wanted to, I could go in and look at her job history. I could look at her talent profile. If we're doing the learning solution, I can look at her training plan. So I can quickly jump to and access this data if it's going to be helpful for me to complete this performance review. I get a little bit of information off the top. I can see right now what the score rating is. So that means that I've actually already gone in and done some evaluations. I haven't submitted it yet. Maybe I want to make some updates. Maybe I'm just not ready to finalize it. But I can see that the calculated score based on the input I provided was a 3.9. But I made a manual selection of 5.0 outstanding. And I can see each item that was evaluated, the weight it was given, what the rating was, and then each section of the form, maybe it's an objective section and a competency section, I can see what the weighting is, so I could choose to weight them differently when I set them up. And then what the overall rating is for each section, and then at the total as well. In my third box here, I have a little team rating of how Wilma stacks up compared to my other team members. So right now, Wilma's at the very top with a 5.0. Marcus is also at the top with a 5.0. So I can see just a numerical listing of how I've rated my different team members and what their rank is amongst the team. If I had any incomplete items, an item that I had not yet evaluated, it would give me a notation here and a quick link to be able to go in and update that incomplete item. Here I also have, and this is actually a pretty neat thing, a gap analysis. And that tells me how a manager versus an employee did these ratings. So I can see that there were 2 items that I rated higher than Wilma did in her self-evaluation. I gave her 1 point higher in both one of her objectives and the communication competency. But I did 1 point lower in one of her objectives and then the hiring and customer-focused competency. So I can see that these were the gaps between my manager evaluation and Wilma's employee self-evaluation. If there's any supporting information available, if I solicited feedback from other participants or a matrix manager, their notes will pull into the form for me. And so that I can see that there was a note here from a participant, either a note I made to myself or from someone else where I solicited feedback. And I can review those notes as I go through and do my manager evaluation. Here's my route map that tells me what the process is for this form. I've got 3 steps to the assessment process. First up, Wilma is going to go in and do her self-assessment. And guess what? It's got a green check. She's already done that. Step 2 is the manager evaluation. It's highlighted in gray, so that's where I am right now. Step 3 is a one-on-one meeting with the manager. And then I move into the signature phase and then into completion. When I look at the individual form, as a customer, you get to determine what sections a form contains. Do we need an introduction? If so, will it be a short one? Will it be a long one? How many sections are we evaluating? Objectives, competencies, development goals, core values, whatever it may be, we create a section for each one, and then each one gets a weighting. So some of my customers only weight objectives. Even though they evaluate competencies, they don't weight them in the evaluation. Others do an 80-20 split or a 50-50 split. Whatever your business process may be, we're able to support that. The performance review, if we're evaluating objectives, actually brings over the objectives from the goal plan. So I don't need to transfer them over or enter them in again. It automatically pulls them in, as well as any of the supporting information that was added to the objective. So I get my on-track rating. If there were milestones, I can look at those. If there were notes that were added, I can look at those as well. So I get that information from the goal plan right here in the performance review. So I don't need to flip back and forth. On the right-hand side, I can see Wilma's self-evaluation. So she gave herself a 3. And we have a few different options for the rating type. We can do stars, we can do radio buttons, we can do drop downs, we can do numbers. We always give a key to indicate what a 1 means versus a 2 versus a 3, so that people have a basis on which to perform their evaluation. And then we have the ability to put in notes as well. So this is Wilma's self-evaluation. I see her goal details that were brought over from goal management. I see a few other details if she'd had any milestones or mid-year targets. Those would show up here as well. On the left-hand side, this is where I have my rating. And I can see here that I've put in 4 stars, and that is why I have this little warning here, that this is the record of rating. This is the one that's going to count towards the final score. This one over here is just for informational purposes. And I know that I've evaluated as a 4, where she's evaluated as a 3. So this is one of those items where I rated her more highly than she rated herself. And I can put in some comments here. I have the ability to do spell check and legal check. So if I put in something to the effect of, you know, Carla is too old to do this job, and I run my legal check, which everybody should, it's going to flag that word old and provide some more appropriate alternatives and suggest very highly that I adjust my language and feedback for that particular area. So similar to a spell check, it keeps my comments professional and in line with what our overall objective is here. As I move down, I can provide my scores and updates for each individual area, provide feedback, constructive criticism, and opportunities for her to grow. Now on the competency side, you'll notice that we have a new link here for something called the Writing Assistant. And I don't know how many of you on the line are managers, but one of the toughest things out there is providing constructive feedback for your employees, good or bad. And sometimes it's nice just to have a little bit of a head start with some of these things. And so the Writing Assistant gives us a starting point for providing feedback. And I can see it's broken into 3 categories based on whether Wilma needs improvement, meets expectations, or exceeds expectations. And as I click on an item, you can see that it starts to formulate feedback for me based on the areas in which I'm clicking. And I can choose to go through from Wilma over to you in terms of narrative. You always follow through versus Wilma always follows through. And I can adjust the positivity up and down. And when I'm ready to place a particular comment into her feedback form, I hit the Place Quote button, and it will take this text and dump it into the feedback box. And so I can do a few of them and place text with each item. I can also click over to the Give Advice tab, where it's got several relevant items of advice. And I can choose to place different pieces of quotes or text in the advice section into her feedback box as well. And then I can come here and either leave it as it is or tailor it and polish it up a little bit and make it a little bit more personal. But at any rate, it gives me a starting point with commentary and feedback that is extremely relevant, extremely constructive, and extremely time-saving when it comes to doing performance reviews. So just a neat little tool that we roll into the system. And then moving down to the bottom, we can add optional development plans or development goals. These are things that they want to work on for the coming year. You can see here we did one for team building skills, and there's no weighting here. This isn't something we took into account, but you certainly could if that's part of your business process. And then down towards the bottom, we get the calculated score. You can see we can't adjust that. It's not selectable here. But we do have the ability to do a manual override, and we can make a selection here. And again, this is the rating that will become her official rating. I can put comments in. telling her she had a great year and did a great job and, enjoyed working with her, etc. And then when we get to the end of the roadmap and it's time to do a sign-off, then we can sign the document saying that everyone's reviewed it. So a pretty elaborate process, simplified, because we don't have to write in our own objectives. It's pulling competencies either based off of a combination of core company values and competencies or job-specific competencies or competencies that are related to being a manager, auto-populating them in for us. We always have the ability to add additional ones if we want, but at least we have a starting point. I select my rating either from a series of stars or radio buttons or drop-down selection. I put my comments in. I have the spell check. I have the legal check. I have the writing assistant. The tool just goes from making performance reviews the thing that everybody hates to the thing that everybody hates not quite as much. So it gives us, on the HR side, good and meaningful data. We can engage in a calibration process to calibrate down these scores. Employees get constructive feedback. And we have the ability to track progress on these goals and run reports on them. So really a win-win situation for everyone. A neat piece on the performance side is this team overview. And the team overview gives me an indication of where everyone is in the review process. So I can see that everyone's completed their employee assessment except for Richard. I can go in and do my manager evaluation just by clicking on the review button. Or I can choose to come over here to the Team Radar button and look at my team members in a side-by-side comparison for doing competency evaluations. Now, I don't do this for objectives because everyone's got their own objectives and we can't really look at them apples to apples. But with the competencies, where people have overlapping competencies, core competencies, company competencies, I can put my employees side by side. I can see ratings that I've given them and comments that I've put in. And I can even say, you know what? Marcus isn't more customer-focused savvy than Brenda is. I'm going to move him to a 3 and her to a 4. And as I'm making my little adjustments, people are recalculating off to the side in terms of their team raters. And when I hit this Save and Done button, these values are actually going to update in the individual employee's review form. So I don't need to go in and individually update them or review them for competencies. I can do them all here side by side. Put my rating in, put my notes and comments in, do my spell check, do my legal check, do my writing assistant work, all in a consolidated and expedited format. So a pretty neat little tool there. When I'm done with my performance reviews, depending on my business processes, I have the option to go in and do a calibration exercise. So if we were in a one-on-one demo right now, I would ask how many people do some sort of calibration. But since we're in a webinar, I'll just go ahead and pretend that everyone does calibration and go ahead and give you a sneak peek into the calibration process. I can do calibrations for individual teams, for divisions, departments, or the organization as a whole, whatever my business process may be. A lot of it is dependent on the organization of your employees and the size of your company. When it comes to calibration, we can have several different team members participate in different types of roles. And if we scroll over a little bit, you can see that someone can be the owner. So they've initiated the calibration and they own the process. Someone can facilitate. So maybe you gather people together in a room and project it on the board and people give live and real-time feedback. Or you can be a participant where you're allowed to give feedback and make input, but you're not running the process and you didn't initiate the process. And with each calibration process, there can be one for each type of form or one for each division or department. I get a status, the number of participants, who the facilitator is, and then what my role is. So if we look at the calibration session for a basic performance evaluation, I can see that there are a series of employees involved in the process. I get a map or a guideline showing the actual results and then the expected guideline. So this is the curve I was hoping to get. And this is what I actually ended up with based on my employees who are involved. I was expecting to see 70% of the participants in this session at a 3, meet expectations. But only 43.5% were there. I have too many people in the exceeds expectations column and the outstanding column, and not enough people in the needs improvement and unsatisfactory guideline. And when I look at my list view, I can see who the employees are, what their competency scores were, an impact of loss, if they are a key employee, how their loss would affect the organization, what their performance review is, overall form ratings, did we discuss them during this calibration session, any comments that were made during this session. Clicking on the performance link gives me what I like to call the bucket view, similar to the dashboard view, showing my 5 different rating categories, now in bucket form: unsatisfactory, needs improvement, meets, exceeds, outstanding. And now I can see each employee sorted into their bucket and ranked based on their score. Out of all the 5s that we had, people 5 or who were rounded to 5, Marcus is first up in the rank, then we have Judy, and then we have Henry. I can click on the little business card view there and get a snapshot of their data, or jump over to any of their other pieces of data that I have access to. When I select on their name, there's a little drop down to the side. I can view their performance evaluation, make adjustments directly in the form, look quickly at their employee profile, look at their development plan, or add a comment to this particular exercise. Each bucket tells me how many adjustments I need to make in order to meet my curve. So in order to meet the curve here, I need to remove 1 person from this category. I need to remove 4 people from exceeds expectations. I need to add 6 here, remove 2 here, and add 1 here. So John was the lowest scorer in the needs improvement category. If I take and drag and drop him into unsatisfactory, I can see that I no longer need to make adjustments here. I've reached my cap for this area. For needs improvement, I still need to remove one more. I was aiming for 5%. I'm at 8.7. Ruth is at the top. If I take her and add her to needs expectations, then now I have started the calibration process, and I'm slowly calibrating these different employees. Maybe we'll remove Henry out of outstanding and into exceeds expectations. Now our outstanding is good. We've got 2 people in there. We're not over. And you can see the only shuffling we have left is between the meets and the exceeds. I need to remove 5 here and add 5 here. If we were all sitting in a room together, we could have conversations about which 5 we want to move around and shuffle. I could go right into their performance form and make updates or calibrations or adjust feedback accordingly. I can send an email to the participants of this exercise. Just all different sorts of things that I can do to ensure that my calibration ends up with things being more in line here. So just a really nice interactive and visual way to go about engaging in a calibration process. Okay, the last thing that we're going to look at for today is compensation. So we're jumping screens just a little bit into a different topic area. But when I think of the flow of someone's talent life cycle, I like to think of them as setting their objectives, being evaluated using performance management, being calibrated using the calibration tool, and then being rewarded for their performance using compensation. So in my mind, this is kind of the next step. Depending on your business processes, you may have multiple different types of compensation plans. Your employees, depending on the type of employee and their seniority at your organization, may have access to all different sorts of plans. Bonus payments, lump sum payments, cost of living adjustments, short-term incentives, long-term incentives. All of that is supported in the compensation process. So if I open one up and look at the compensation plan for company, business, and individual incentives, I can see that I have a listing of employees who are eligible for awards. These are my 6 team members. I can see different allocations that have been given for each one. A business allocation, an individual, and then a target. And I can see that they're all overlaid here for me. Visually, I can see them. And as I hover, I get my exact amount. So I can see some areas where employees exceeded expectations and some areas where they maybe fell short. I can see what my budget is in terms of what's been budgeted versus what's been allocated. I can see any exceptions that come into play. For example, Marcus, Richard, Sid, Wilma, and Dick are over target. Brenda is under target. I can see what their role is. If there are any indicators in terms of promotability or impact of loss that have been filled in during a succession exercise, that data will be available to me here. I can quickly view on their employment details to get some more background on them. Maybe I'll look to see the last time they received a bonus or a pay increase and what that amount was. For her, I can see her target payout and her actual payout based on the numbers that have been provided. You can see her total payment is just a little bit shy of her target because she was just a little bit short of her target. And I can see that broken out by the business component and the individual components. And then I can make adjustments as needed. I can change my display. I can work in a series of different currencies and make my planning awards here. And I can follow this process for not just the bonus or target bonuses, but also for incentive pay. I can have similar scenarios for variable pay or for cost of living adjustments. And so you can see I just jumped over from the visual graph display into a planning worksheet. And depending on the type of manager or compensation specialist you are, you typically prefer one versus the other. I actually prefer this particular worksheet because I get to see a lot of data all at once, and I'd like to see key pieces of information that help impact my decision for giving out an award. So here, looking at Brenda, she was the employee we had up on the last screen. I can see her target, 3,863. I can see what the company performance was. I can see what our business unit performance was, and then I can see her individual performance. Now maybe your process is not this complex. Maybe we don't take into account business unit performance, and that's fine. We would just build it out of your process. Or maybe it's just company performance and no individual performance. That's fine. We can build it however your process aligns. You can see here if there's a performance rating from a performance review form, that pulls in as well. So some customers like to align their awards to the performance score as opposed to some sort of sales or progress target. So we certainly have the capability to do it either way. You'll see with the incentive payouts, the amounts that I'm entering in. If I go above or below a certain amount, they'll turn yellow on me. And that's giving me a warning. Right now, Brenda's payout at 120 is above the maximum guideline at 110. And if I go above 110, the system is going to require a note here. I need to justify why I'm putting her above my max guideline. And you can see one of the neat things about putting those guidelines in place is that you can keep people within the range that you've allocated for them to help them stay on track with their budget, how much has been allocated versus unallocated. And if you're going over a particular payout amount for an individual, you need to provide that justification. And you as a business will set those guidelines. Maybe your guideline isn't 110, maybe yours is 105. That's what we would build into this process. Maybe you have a floor as well. Maybe it can't go below 80 without some sort of justification. We would build that in as well. So as I come here to do my awards for my different team members, I can see all of these different pieces of information to help me arrive at this number. And not only that, but I can look at all of my employees in a side-by-side format, both their percentages and the payout amount, and how that looks in terms of percent of salary. I can put notes, I can print it, I can send notifications. If I'm going through an approval process, I can save this and send it up to my manager for approval or to a comp specialist for approval. So lots of different options in terms of, am I planning here in my planning sheet, or am I back to my overview where I'm getting my snapshot? When I do go into my overview for snapshot, am I looking at all employees, or am I doing them one by one? And again, I like to do it from that planning sheet because I like to look at lots of data at once. Some managers like to do things from this screen just because it gives them a more visual view if they're not really interested in the individual breakout numbers. Okay, let me jump back to our home screen. And we have about 20 minutes left. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the system for questions. If you have a question, go ahead and raise your hand or type your question in the question box, and I will go ahead and answer them for you. So question or chat, I guess the question section is located just towards the bottom of your web panel. And the first question is, how do we migrate existing system information into SuccessFactors? And the answer to that really depends on what your current system is and what you're hoping SuccessFactors will do. So for example, if you're hoping to replace your entire existing system with SuccessFactors, a full-blown core HRIS, and talent offering, then we'll perform a data conversion exercise, extracting your data out of your existing system, formatting it, and then importing it into SuccessFactors. We have import templates and import tools that help us do that. If you should happen to be an SAP customer running on-premise SAP, it's actually a little bit easier. We have a few different tools that exist to help us pull that information right from your on-premise environment. So depending on what system you're coming from and what data you hope to bring over, it's really a matter of identifying the correct data and then using our load tools to help import that data in. David is asking if we went through the recruiting module. We did not, David. Time did not permit us to jump through that module. But if you would like to see a more specific demonstration just on recruiting, you can let me know, and I'd be more than happy to schedule something with you one-on-one. I'm going to go ahead and pop up my contact information back on our slide. And if you'd like to contact me for information on one of the modules we did not get to, then we can certainly go ahead and arrange a time for that. Okay, we have a question about integrating to SAP HCM, and how does that work? We typically use one of three mediums for integrating. We use HANA integration, we use Boomi integration, or we use PI for on-prem. The first two are actually included with your subscription to SuccessFactors Employee Central. So if you're hoping to use core HR through SuccessFactors and to integrate, let's say, a mini master back into on-prem for payroll or for authorizations or for workflows through your other modules, we would use one of those solutions to exchange the data back and forth. If you're just hoping to use SuccessFactors for its talent capabilities and you don't need a full set of HR-related data, then we would take a little bit simpler approach, exchanging just a mini master of data from SAP into SuccessFactors. through an import mechanism. So it really depends on which system would be your primary system of record and what data do we need to duplicate in a different system to support which particular processes. I know that's kind of a vague answer, but without knowing more about what modules you're hoping to take advantage of and whether SuccessFactors or SAP HCM on-premise would be your core system of record, it's hard to say one way or another. The important thing, I guess, there to note is that SAP and SuccessFactors have developed standard integrations between each other. And so we really just need to identify and plug in one of the existing interfaces. Okay, we have a question about global work, whether this is a global solution and how that's supported. And the answer to that is yes, this is actually a very global solution for all different modules. We have the ability to support a myriad of different languages. We support all different currencies. We support local options as well as global templates. And we can support your talent functions even by location. So one of the things that we'll do during requirements discussion is talk about your employee base, where they're located, and what your needs are in different locations. For some modules, the needs may be the same. Maybe you have a globalized performance review process. Great. Everyone's on the same performance review, and we don't need to make any special provisions for different locations. But maybe on the recruiting side, you have special needs based on location. Maybe you're looking for different pieces of information or hoping to gather and store different things, in which case we would come up with what we like to call a global template, pieces that would be universal to everyone in your system. Things like a first name and a last name, we want that from everyone. But then maybe we come up with specific local pieces of data that we just want based on whether someone is in a particular location or not. And so we set up both the global and then our specific local pieces. And really that helps to keep everyone happy because your centralized HR group gets their global data and then your local representatives get their pieces to support their local processes. There's a question about whether French is supported, and yes, we support French and French Canadian. There is a question about the cost for adding SuccessFactors, and actually I don't have costing information, but it looks like you're already a customer with Illumity right now, and I think probably the best bet is to contact your Illumity representative or to shoot me an email at the email address I have on screen, and I can make sure it gets to the right person, and they would be able to help you with cost information. Okay, and we have a question about payroll, whether SuccessFactors runs payroll or whether we can continue to use our existing payroll solution. And that's a great question. The answer is yes to both. SuccessFactors does have a cloud payroll solution that you can choose to utilize for running payroll in the cloud, or you can continue to use your existing payroll solution, whether that's SAP on-prem or ADP or Ceridian, whatever it may be. We do have the ability to integrate with a myriad of different payroll solutions. So you can go to the cloud if you'd like to go to the cloud, or you can stay with what you have if it works and you're comfortable with it. Are there any other questions I can answer? Okay, well, thank you so much for joining today. I appreciate everyone's time. Have a good afternoon.